This morning, as you know, we've been talking for the last couple of weeks, we've been thinking about the church with Giles and Lauren moving on and changes that might mean for us. And this week I thought it's really important for us. There are some things that I felt were really important for us to be aware of. And they're things that I think I've communicated, but I'm not sure if I've communicated. But they're really important things. And even if I have communicated some of these things, I think I've not communicated them as well as they should be, considering how important they are. Okay, so just to get the point across about communication, I've got a couple of things for us. Have a look at that. You can think you're communicating one thing, and you communicate completely the wrong thing. Okay, I'm going to use a microphone. It's not because we're such a big crowd, but we're recording it. It sounds like you're in a toilet if you're not using a microphone. Okay, so here's another one. I like this one. This is good. Miscommunication, eh? But I've got one more, okay? This I just found quite amusing. This is a little video. You have to try and keep up the subtitles.
Mr. President, Condoleezza Rice is here to see you.
Good, send her in.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. President.
Oh, Condoleezza, nice to see you. What's happening?
Well, Mr. President, I have the report here about the new leader in China.
Great, Condi, lay it on me.
Mr. President, who is the new leader of China?
Well, that's what I want to know.
Well, that's what I'm telling you, Mr. President.
Well, that's what I'm asking you, Condi. Who is the new leader of China?
Yes.
I mean the feller's name.
Hugh.
The guy in China.
Hugh.
The new leader of China.
Hugh.
The Chinaman.
Hugh is leading China, Mr. President.
What are you asking me for?
I'm telling you, Hugh is leading China.
Well, I'm asking you, Condi, who is leading China?
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Will you or will you not tell me the name of the new leader of China?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Arafat is in China. I thought he was in the Middle East.
That's correct, sir.
Then who's in China?
Yes, sir.
Yasser's in China?
No, sir.
Then who is?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir?
No, sir.
Connie, you're starting to back neither. I need to know the name of the new leader of China, so I want you to get me the Secretary General of the United Nations on the phone.
Coffee, Annan?
No, thanks. And Condi, call me George.
You want coffee?
No.
You don't want coffee?
No, but now you mention it, I could use a glass of milk. And then get me the UN.
Yes, sir.
Not Yasser, the guy at the United Nations.
Coffee.
Milk! Will you please make that call?
And call who?
Well, who's the guy at the UN?
No, who is the guy in China?
Will you stay out of China?
Yes, sir.
And stay out of the Middle East. Just get me the guy at the UN.
Coffee.
All right, with cream and 2 sugars. Now get on the phone.
Hello, Rice here.
Rice, good idea. And get a couple of egg rolls too, Condi. Maybe we should send some to the guy in China and the Middle East. Can you get Chinese food in the Middle East? I don't know.
I thought that was quite amusing. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we communicate, or that I communicate, something that's really important. That is, as has been prayed this morning, and I think we know this, but that is that the Lord is with us. Now, we can take that for granted, but it's good to recount that the Lord is with us. And that's why I chose the passage from 1 Samuel, just to share a few thoughts from before looking back over the story of our church over this last few months and seeing how the Lord has been with us. The story in 1 Samuel, the Ark of the Covenant had been brought back to the people of Israel, and the people kind of saw that as the Lord coming back to Israel, and the sense that God is with us again. And so the people kind of recommitted their lives to the Lord. That was a time for them to recommit their lives to the Lord. Then all the people of Israel turned back to the Lord. They'd been at least kind of divided of heart, divided hearts, and they weren't really focused on the Lord before that. But here they recommit themselves to being single-hearted for the Lord. One of the series that we're going to do in the future is another series in the Beatitudes. I know that Giles did that fairly recently, but we're going to do it again. And where the Lord says, blessed are the pure in heart, that means, it doesn't mean say, our hearts are without sin. Of course, that's not the case for any of us. What it means is having a single heart for the Lord. Blessed are those who are single-hearted for the Lord, who are pure in heart. They're not divided of heart. And Israel, knowing that the Lord was with them, recommitted their lives to the Lord. And it's always a good time for us to reevaluate our own walk with the Lord at times when God is at work. It's a good time. It reminds us, well, that God is alive. He's at work, he's doing something, and he's got purposes and plans for each of us. And we can forget that and begin to sort of drift in our walk with him. Well, Israel turned back to the Lord with all their hearts. And that's what Samuel says in verse 5. Then Samuel said, assemble all Israel at Mizpah, and I will intercede with the Lord for you. When they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. And on that day they fasted, and there they confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. Now Samuel was serving as leader of Israel at Mizpah. So they come back, they realise we've been divided of heart. We've not perhaps been really had our eyes on serving the Lord. And a sign of a divided heart, really what it is this, that we become Christians and the Lord is added to our lives as someone that we value hugely. But divided of heart means, but we still value all the things we did value before just as much. So unbelievers, they're single-minded, they're single-hearted, they're not divided of heart. They have no concern for the Lord, do they? None. They just value the things that they value. They treasure the things that they treasure. They want the things that they want. They desire the things that they desire. A single-minded, single-hearted believer, their hearts are settled on the Lord. It's the Lord they want. They can enjoy all the other things, but they're not really that bothered about those things anymore. Materialism and money and those sorts of things. Power and status. These are things that people in the world, they live for those things. But when you become a Christian and you discover the glory and the wonder of God, he becomes our highest treasure. And the one that we value and that we want and that we desire and that we need. And not money or sex or power and all those sorts of things. And when we have divided hearts, sometimes the Lord catches our attention, doesn't he? And it's like, actually, he is worth giving my whole life to. And that's what Israel were doing there. They confessed their sin, they confessed that they'd been double-minded, double-hearted, and they turned back to the Lord. And even as they do that, their enemy is gathering. Okay, the enemy is gathering. Israel does not have a hope against the enemy. But as the enemy gathers and Samuel makes the sacrifice, what happens is the Lord intervenes. He shows his hand. The gracious hand of the Lord was upon Israel and against the enemies. And so the Lord sends thunder and causes confusion, and the enemy gets routed by Israel. This is a kind of a phenomenal victory. No one could have planned that. No one would have seen that coming. No one could have orchestrated it or manipulated it. They completely destroyed themselves and got routed by Israel. And then, and here's the bit that's relevant for us, but the Lord intervenes, but also what Gideon does is he sets up that stone, doesn't he? Ebenezer, he names it. And he says this, and here's the reason why. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. And in doing that, what he's doing is he is acknowledging that it's because of God that they're where they are. He's acknowledging that it's the Lord who's intervened. And you know what? It's so important to that. And he marked it by building this rock so that everyone knew. It was a sign, a symbol, a reminder to them of God's intervention and that the Lord was with them. The Lord was helping them. And so what I want to do is kind of do something like that this morning. Build a bit of a rock, an Ebenezer, so that to remind us that that the Lord is with us. So I'm going to share a bit of the story, and there might be some bits and pieces that you'll have missed. And you know, the Lord is amazing. He's in the big picture, but often where he shows himself, isn't it, is in the detail. Little things that others wouldn't recognise, but we know that must have been the Lord. And it's a great encouragement to see these things. So let me share with you something of the story so far, and to say this about the future. One of the things that I've just considered really, and I think this is probably important for us, and that is this: with Giles and Lauren moving on, that is a big change for us. And I think that for now, if possible, that is enough change for us. So although there will be changes, inevitably, that we're going to have to change some things, we'll keep changes to a minimum for now. And hopefully, that's not going to be too much for us. We can then reevaluate a little bit further down the line. One of the key things that's really important for us is that we don't get too distracted. We've got Christmas coming up, and we want to make the most of the opportunities that brings as well. So far as is possible, we'll minimise the changes that we need to make. And just to encourage you, I'm pretty sure we can do it without it being too much of a burden. Now, it might turn out actually to be a bit too much. In that case, we'll have to make some more significant changes. But for now, let's just recount what the Lord has done for us. Over the years, over the last sort of 3-4 years, Giles and Lauren they've worked part-time for the church most of that time, we'll know. And Giles has gone for a number of jobs in different parts of the country in that time. Some of those you've known about, a few you haven't. The ones that you don't know about are ones where it didn't really go anywhere at all to start with, so it wasn't worth saying anything. But others you'll remember. He'll have travelled miles and gone and preached at a church and then come back. And then what's happened is those things haven't worked out. Now here's the thing to note, okay? Like I said, we don't want to miscommunicate. Here's the thing that I want to communicate at this point, okay? Giles initiated that. So he would go and look for a job. But it didn't work out, okay? And that happened over a number of years. Now when you do that, particularly when the church that you're looking at shows some interest and you go and visit and you preach and then you take the family up there, do you know, all of that is very unsettling. Can be very unsettling because you're thinking, are we going? Are we staying? And can be a bit unsettling for the church. We don't know what's happening, we're not sure. And so after doing that a number of times, Giles and Lauren came to the conclusion that the Lord isn't calling them on. They're here to stay. And in their own hearts and in their minds, they made that decision. Moulsecoomb is our home. We're going to put our roots down here. Of course, the Lord can call us on at any time if he wants, but he'll have to make that very clear. We're not going to go looking. And they had that other issue, didn't they? Their house was a bit small. And so they had the extension done, just around Christmas, wasn't it? Just got it finished. Lovely extension. And that was a kind of a signal to themselves, to the Lord, and to us that, you know, they're here to stay. And I'm sure we all kind of read it in that way. And that was right. That was what they were wanting to do. And so everything, you know, from that time onwards, everything was pretty settled. And then our esteemed treasurer, Mr. Gray, at a trustees meeting on May the 11th it was, informed us that all our money was going to be gone by March 2016. And that was going to be it. If we carry on as we are, all the money is going to be gone. Now, that is the first time we've ever been in that situation. And it was like an eek moment, like, what are we going to do? And I met with Giles and Grenville, and they were just as surprised to learn that. We hadn't really seen it coming. Some donors had stopped for various reasons. And that was the situation. So we met and we talked, we prayed, and our question was, what are we going to do? What is the Lord doing in this, and what do we need to do? And there's those words, okay, what do we need to do? And so we began to think about what we might do. And we had various options and scenarios. We thought about both of us going part-time. We thought about Giles' work ceasing. We thought about setting up a business, getting some redundancy money, use that to set up a business that we can both be employed and keep serving the church. These are all sort of pie in the sky ideas that we were trying to think about what we could do, knowing that fairly soon we needed to do something. Something needed to be done. So that was our kind of efforts, trying to work out what was happening. What we knew was this: God was doing something. Okay, that was obvious. God had caught our attention, and He was doing something. And we believe that, and we should all believe that. This wasn't just the money running out, as a sort of one of those human factors that happen sometimes. If we believe in a sovereign God, He was doing something, and He caught our attention in a way that wasn't the case before. So, the following week, or I think it may have been a couple of weeks later, I got an email land in my inbox, forwarded from Giles, from Ferndown Church. Actually, no, I've skipped a bit. Before that, the following week it was, Lauren got offered the opportunity to increase her employment to full-time. Now, up until this point, Giles was half-time for the church, Lauren was half-time for her company, and that meant they had, between a full-time salary, and that kind of worked okay. Giles could work for the church, and the rest of the time he was still on the estate, which was good. But she got offered the opportunity to increase her hours to full-time. That would mean Giles giving up his work for the church. That would ease the immediate financial burden on the church. And so we thought, well, maybe this is a good holding position. The timing was perfect. Yeah, the time, it had come at just the right time. Maybe, this wasn't something we desired, but maybe it was a good holding position for those purposes I just mentioned. And we also knew this, that if we didn't take that opportunity, it was as though the Lord just gave it to us. We were scratching on, what do we do? And the Lord presents something. It was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And we knew that if we didn't take that, then it may be, even in a few weeks' time, a month's time, we would have to make Giles redundant. And then that post that Lauren was offered would have been gone, and they would have been in financial difficulty. And so we saw that was a blessing from the Lord and a provision of God. And so we took advantage of that. Giles' work for the church stopped. He became a full-time house husband, which wasn't something he particularly desired. He wasn't using his gifts, but we trusted that the Lord had other plans. Now then, so the next thing was Giles began looking for jobs locally, because as we said, they'd settled in Wolf's-King. So he looked for some jobs locally. He was hoping to get some kind of a ministry job. There was a couple of possibilities. But while we was looking at that, it was then that the email landed in my inbox, forwarded from Giles, an invitation from Ferndown Church in Bournemouth for Giles to apply for the post there. Now here's the thing, okay? Giles had initiated all the other job things that he'd gone for, the applications that he'd gone for. He initiated that. He wasn't looking, we never heard of Ferndown Church. We have no connection with them whatsoever. So for Giles to just get this email, just as he'd stopped working for the church, out of the blue, clearly was of the Lord. As we look back, it's clearly of the Lord. At the time, I think Giles was a bit reticent about getting too excited about it. There had been other possibilities that had not worked out, and so he decided that he wasn't going to tell Lauren or any of the family immediately, because, who knows, they're in a kind of an unstable time, and maybe this was something, maybe it wasn't. So he didn't reply immediately to them either, and talked with Giles and with Grenville and myself about it, and he said he'd give it a bit of time. Well, they got in contact again, and we were asking, are you going to apply, are you interested? And so he did, while he looked for one or two other jobs locally. The other jobs locally never worked out, but Ferndown, the interest continued, okay? And so the relationship began to build between Giles and the Woodcraft family in Ferndown. Now, at the same time, we were still thinking about what are we going to do about the finance and about our future as a church. One of the questions was Jade. We was paying her out of the church's central funds. It became clear that we wouldn't be able to continue doing that. So we decided if she was going to continue training with us, it would only be if we could get external funding for it. And to the degree that we get funding would be the degree that she would get the training, that she would continue her employment with us. So I began to put in some applications for some funding. And these two things, the sort of the funding and Giles' relationship with Ferndown continued for a while. And basically all the money that we bid for came in. We've been granted all of it. One we'll find out in January. But the Lord was very gracious in that, because not only did he give us the money that we bid for, he gave us more than we bid for. So on one occasion, one of the organisations that I put in a bid to, they phoned me up, they said, Julian, we've decided we're going to give you the money, but you didn't say how much. And I said, oh, and I couldn't remember what it was, so I said, I'm pretty sure it was 2,000. I said, we'll give you 2,000. Well, I had told them how much. It was on a separate bit of paper with all the workings out and that. And I'd asked for 1,500. So they gave us an extra £500, which was quite handy. George went down to MFI and... IKEA, sorry. Anyway, so that was extra £500. One of the other funders, they got in contact and said, we're glad to tell you that we're going to give you the £3,000 a year for the next 2 years. Well, I only asked for 1 year, so it's £3,500 extra given. And then another thing happened was we got a cheque from the Cornerstone Trust, wasn't it? We've never heard of them. I've tried seeking them out. I can't find them. The only Cornerstone Trust I've been able to find is a Christian respite type thing for people with various disabilities. So we still don't know who they are. We just got this five grand, and then after that we got another 10 grand from a couple that we know, but they didn't know about our situation. In fact, it's amazing how the Lord was in that. I've sort of worked on a funding strategy. And I thought, I'll send this strategy to one pastor that I know. We have a lot of churches support us. But I'll send it to this one pastor and ask him, would you be willing to give this to your church? You know, or are there things that you think should be changed about it? He's a good friend. I thought he could give me some good advice. So that was on the 22nd of May. He emailed me back and said, no, that's fine. I'll give it to our church today and see what they think and give them an opportunity to respond. And then on the 24th of May, I got the letter with a £10,000 cheque from someone in their church. It was dated on the 22nd. That was the date that I'd sent the email. Now the thing is, they hadn't seen the email. And they gave us the reason. Do you remember I read the letter out to the church? A remarkable letter about why they felt they should give us the 10,000. So it was amazing, the way that all that worked out. And then getting the news that Giles and Lauren have got the job. Okay? And all of those things work together. And the Lord's hand has clearly been in all of that in an amazing way, in quite a remarkable way. And one of the things about it all is it was really not, it's not just that the Lord has been in it, and not just seeing his hand in it, but seeing his gracious hand in it. Because, for example, it's good to look at these things and think, why did the Lord do it like that? And what's he saying? Is he teaching us something? So here's an example. Why is it that the Lord allows Giles to apply for all these jobs, none of it gets anywhere, so he comes to the conclusion that the Lord is saying, I want you to stay there. So he then gets an extension on his house, and then the Lord says, no, I'm moving you. A bit more firmly fixed, he's got the extension, and then, now's the time to go. And why does the Lord work our finances like this? We're going to have to do something. Giles is going to, we came to the conclusion, stop working for the church, and then he gets the other job, and then all the other money comes in. That if we had that before, we wouldn't have even been thinking about Giles moving on. He'd have ignored that email. But he gave the money after we knew we needed it. Why would he do it like that? Well, I think there are a number of reasons. I think the first thing is this. I don't think the Lord was teaching Giles that he's meant to be here. But I don't think that Giles made a mistake either in getting the extension and coming to that conclusion. I think there's a bigger lesson, and that is this, that when the Lord acts, or when the Lord wants us to change in some significant way, that usually he acts in a decisive way. It's not just that, that's not always the case. There's lots of stories that we could tell you about that, but just two that I'll share very briefly. For example, when I was called to Moulsecoomb, George and I, George was not as persuaded as I was, let me put it like that. And I used to hassle her, the Lord wants us there. And she's not one to be, told in that way, and she has to be persuaded herself. And I remember Eric saying to me, stop hassling her, just pray about it, And so I did that, and then one day we came and visited Moores Coombe. And one of George's real concerns was our oldest daughter, Jocelyn. Now, Jocelyn's a fairly unusual name. 20 years ago, it was an even more unusual name. But she was concerned about Jocelyn, going from a school that she'd just not long started, was very settled in, and moving to Moores Coombe, where she wouldn't know anyone and all that sort of stuff. So it was a rainy day. We was walking around Moores Coombe. It was a miserable day, wasn't it? And George said, oh, can we check out the school? So we went and visited the school, and we sort of had a walk around the school. Wasn't really meant to go in there, we was trespassing. But we've repented, so don't anyone do that kind of thing. Anyway, we was walking around the school, and there was a few steps that led up to like a playground, and it had one of those archways over it. And as we walked up, the kids had been chalking on the ground, and the rain had, where it was raining, had run down the steps, but there was a dry patch, and on the step was named, was the name Jocelyn, just chalked on the step there. And then we inquired afterwards, because Jocelyn ended up going to that school. There wasn't a Jocelyn at that school before that, was there? Not that anyone knew of. So it's quite remarkable, and that for George did it, and that was it. The Lord works decisively when when He wants us to do something that requires faith steps, big faith steps. Very often that's the case. Same with Eric Harmer when he was moving on. Eric founded this church, he was leading it. And I was thinking I was going to be moving on. And I was all geared up in my own mind, like, I'm going to be going. And Eric said to me, this is just before the summer holidays, he said, don't worry, Julian. He said, I'm going to be here at least for the next 5 years, so that'll be fine. So I was thinking, I'll come back and we'll start the process of looking elsewhere. While I was on holiday, God so spoke to me and said, Julian, I want you to stay and Eric to go. I was like, what? Eric said he wants to stay. And I was thinking I was going. And I was thinking, how do I tell him that? That he's got to go. He was my senior. And anyway, when I got back, I said, Eric, we got to meet and talk. The first day, that we could meet was September the 10th, Eric's birthday. I thought, great, of all the days to give him this news. And what if he doesn't agree? So I prayed about it, and we met, and he said, oh, just before you say anything, Julian, I've got to tell you something. So I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, while we were on holiday, Sarah and I really felt the Lord saying, Julian, you should stay and we should go. I was like, praise God. That could have been a really difficult situation. If you say, no, the Lord hasn't called me to go. No, He has called you to go. Off you go. It would have been pretty awkward, wouldn't it? But the Lord had spoken to both of us independently. And in this situation, the Lord orchestrated events. This wasn't Giles looking. We didn't work out the finances the way that they were. God has been in all of that to bring us to the point that we're at, where Giles can go with absolute confidence, 100% agreement, unanimous agreement at the church there that he should go. And very clearly the Lord's hand in it. And so we can have real confidence for Giles and Lauren, but also for ourselves. Why, again, just thinking about the finance, why does He give the money after and not before? Well, we're thinking, with Giles going, Lord, what are you doing in this? Are you saying that, our time has come to an end and that maybe it's, we've done all that we can, we gave it our best shot. Most of you will remember, I think it was a year ago or maybe 18 months ago, we was in a difficult situation. I said, let's just give it a year. I said, what we could do is kind of draw back and sell off the farm, as it were, cut costs here and there, and end up basically doing nothing, but we can keep going for longer. Or we can just give it everything. Try and reach as many people as we can, use all the money that we've got to try and reach people, and we thought we'll go for it, and it's up to the Lord. And He blessed it, didn't He? Really, He's blessed our outreach. We're far more connected now than we were. But we was in this situation now. Lord, are you saying now, well, we've given it our best shot. There is nothing more that we can do. Maybe the Lord was saying, it's time to call it a day. He's got purpose for us in other places. And we have to ask that question. But I think what's clear is this. The way that the Lord's done it, He said, now, Giles is going, but I want you to keep going. here is the assurance that I've got purpose for you. And that was really encouraging. And again, the Lord's gracious hand, the timing. So we got all that money came in, all of it came in by the week that we was announcing Giles and Lauren was leaving. So he was able to say, bah, look at what the Lord's done. Amazing. The Lord's gracious hand. And it's right for us to acknowledge all this because it should give us confidence that, yeah, God is with us. He's got purpose for us as a body of believers. And then it was a real encouragement. I got a call from Paul, who's not here today, but he's probably off on his bike somewhere. No, Carol's saying no. He says he's doing something legitimate, but he's probably off on his bike somewhere. He had to go and get a part somewhere. And anyway, Paul asked to see me, and on the Tuesday after we made the announcement, Carol and Paul said we'd really like to come back, come and be a part of New Life Church. So it's great, isn't it? The Lord's gracious hand upon us as a church. And it's very important for us to acknowledge these things and to respond appropriately. So as we can see the Lord's hand is upon us, that He's got purpose for us, what I want to do is really encourage us, all of us, to re-evaluate our own walk with the Lord and our relationships with one another. And to think about, Lord, how do you want us to be going on? And there's two questions there. One is about the structures of the church and how we continue as a church. And what I want to say about that is this. Listen, we are at a vulnerable time, okay? It's at times of transition and change that the evil one, if he can, will get a foothold. Okay? And we need to be careful about that. Now, here's the thing for us to remember. Okay? Whatever changes we might make structurally, do you know what? They're not that important. That's just practical changes. What is important is that we love one another through those changes. And that we keep trusting one another. That we keep believing that the Lord is for us. That we don't allow wrong thinking to enter in and dissension. That we speak well of one another. They're the things that are important, that we maintain our unity. You see, that's what the evil one would want to do. He'd love for us, as we come up vulnerable and go through change, he'd love to have us squabbling over structures. Do you know what? The Lord is not bothered about whether we have this model or that. He's not really that bothered. He's not concerned so much about the bricks and mortar of the church. He's concerned about how we love one another. That's what's important. As I said, I don't anticipate significant structural change for the future, not for the immediate future. I'm hoping, and I think I've got a way of us going forward so that no one has to be going out more than once a month, and yet somehow to continue all that we're doing. So I think that's a good thing, and we'll deal with the change of Giles and Lauren moving on then without too much change within ourselves. And then we can re-evaluate and think, okay, do we need to make some more changes to work more effectively? But we can have confidence, okay? So hopefully that assures you that there's not going to be major change, not unless the plan that I've got doesn't work, okay? So I'll reveal the great plan, okay? I'll show you a diagram of it in a moment. But really, it's not significant, okay? It's not a big deal. It's just a few people here and there, and things moved around a little bit. One change, the key change, if I can find it. Now look, I wasn't planning on showing you this, but I think I will. Now here's what I don't know. I don't know if I've put people's names in to things. If I haven't spoken to any of you yet. This has just been working in my head. So you know, let me just see if I've got that. I want to see, because here's what I don't want to do: show you a diagram, and then you see the people's names, and then I have to come back and say, sorry, we can't do that. And you're thinking, oh, so and so wouldn't do it, you know. And so I don't want that situation. Can you? Oh, hang on, I'll disconnect it here. No, I can't. Everyone close your eyes for a moment. I mean it, close your eyes for a moment, okay? Just for a moment, I just want to see Anyone peek? No peeking, okay? Mandy, you've got your eyes open. Pack it up. Okay. Yeah, I can't show you. It's got everyone's names on it. You can see that one. That's irrelevant. Okay, you can look again now. But basically, I've just jiggled things around a bit, and the key change is this. Once a month when the children go out, all the children go out with just 2 people, okay? And so we'll have everyone together. And that just means that we can manage the rest. So the children, every week, will still be getting their Sunday school and that kind of thing, apart from one week of the month, okay? So that's the change. So it's a fairly minor one. I hope it's one that we can cope with. That's assuming people are happy to do the things that are required for that to happen. Okay? So, I'll draw it to a close. I know it's a slightly strange sort of sermon. For those who are particularly visiting, thank you for your patience with us. But that brings us, I think, up to speed. The main thing is this: the Lord's hand, the Lord's gracious hand, has been upon us all, and upon Giles and Lauren. And we can be excited and have confidence about what the Lord is going to do in the future. Let's pray.